They laughed when she walked into the room. Dressed in a plain blouse and worn-out shoes, she didn't look like someone who belonged in a high-stakes boardroom filled with sharp suits and sharper tongues. To them, she was just a simple woman, maybe the secretary or someone who had wandered into the wrong meeting. They whispered, smirked, and made jokes under their breath. But what they didn't know was that the woman they were mocking had a secret, a powerful one that would flip their smug expressions into stunned silence. Her name was Lee. Quiet, kind, and never flashy, she wasn't the kind of person who demanded attention. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, it was always with purpose. But in this room, surrounded by egos and ambition, Lee's quiet strength was mistaken for weakness. They dismissed her, cut her off, and even openly questioned why she was there at all. To them, she was just wasting everyone's time. What none of them realized was that Leah wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was married to the very billionaire who had funded the entire project they were pitching. The same billionaire who held the future of their business in his hands. And she wasn't there by accident. She was there with a reason, and soon she would have the final say. Just when the room thought they had her all figured out, something happened that made them stop cold. Their laughter faded. Their faces changed. And for the first time, they really looked at her, not as the simple woman they thought they could brush aside, but as someone they might have made a huge mistake underestimating. But what exactly did she say or do that changed everything? Let's go back and see how it all began. Leah hadn't always lived a life that brushed shoulders with billionaires. She grew up in a small town, raised by a single mother who taught her the value of kindness and quiet confidence. She worked her way through college, sometimes juggling 2 jobs just to make ends meet. Nothing was ever handed to her. She knew what it meant to earn respect, not expect it. And even after marrying Daniel Blake, the elusive tech billionaire whose name was whispered in every corporate hallway, she never changed. She stayed grounded, choosing to live simply despite being connected to unimaginable wealth. Daniel admired her for that. In fact, he often said her wisdom helped to make some of his best business decisions. So when a major investment pitch came across his desk, one that involved a flashy new startup with big ideas and even bigger egos, he asked Leah to sit in on the meeting. Not as his wife, not as a figurehead, but as a quiet observer. Her job: just listen, watch, seek who these people really were when they thought no one important was looking. The boardroom team didn't know Leah's name, and they definitely didn't recognize her face. They assumed she was nobody, just another assistant sitting in the corner, probably there to take notes or fetch coffee. One of them even made a joke at her expense, loud enough for others to hear. It stung, but Lee said nothing. She kept her eyes on them, watching closely. And what she saw wasn't impressive. Arrogance, disrespect, a complete disregard for anyone they didn't think could help them climb higher. But what they didn't realize was that their future, their funding, and everything they'd built up to this moment was sitting quietly right across from them, in the very woman they just laughed at. As the presentation began, Lee stayed silent in the back corner of the boardroom, her eyes calm but sharp. The team of executives, led by a man named Marcus, spoke with rehearsed confidence, throwing out buzzwords like scalability, market disruption, and next-gen innovation. They talked fast, smiled often, and only looked at each other, never once acknowledging Leah's presence. To them, she didn't matter. What they didn't know was that Daniel had already reviewed the numbers. He wasn't interested in flashy slides or inflated projections. He was interested in the people behind the pitch, their values, their judgment, and how they treated others when they thought no one important was watching. That's why Lee was there. Marcus, The lead presenter came across as charming on the surface, but Lee noticed cracks. He constantly interrupted his own team, shut down questions, and exaggerated facts to make the project sound more impressive than it really was. When one junior member of the team tried to speak up with a concern, Marcus waved him off with a smirk, saying, "Let the big dogs handle this." Leah took note. It wasn't just arrogance, it was a culture of disrespect. And that culture extended to how they treated her. Another team member passed her by on his way to grab coffee, glanced at her clipboard and scoffed, taking notes for the real decision makers. Lee gave a small smile but said nothing. She was watching, recording everything. Back at home, Daniel was waiting for her insight. He trusted her instincts more than any analyst's report. But Lee wasn't ready to share her thoughts just yet. She wanted to see more. She needed to understand not just what they were pitching, but who these people really were when no one was trying to impress them. And soon she would get her chance. As the meeting dragged on, the tension in the room grew thicker. Leah could feel it. Though she remained calm, her mind was racing. Marcus and his team were pushing hard, confident their charm and slick presentation would seal the deal. But beneath the surface, cracks were starting to show. One of the board members, a sharp woman named Claire, seemed skeptical. She kept glancing at Leah, as if sensing there was more to this quiet woman than met the eye. Leah caught her gaze once, and their eyes locked for a moment, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Then came the moment that changed everything. Marcus, growing impatient with Claire's probing questions, snapped at her. "Are you seriously doubting our capabilities after everything we've laid out?" His tone was harsh, and the room fell silent. The arrogance was unbearable, even for those used to boardroom battles. Leah finally decided it was time to speak. Her voice was steady, but carried weight beyond what anyone expected. "Respect isn't something you demand with loud words," she said quietly. "It's earned through how you treat the people around you, your team, your partners, even someone sitting quietly in the corner." Heads turned. Murmurs started. Marcus looked stunned, as if realizing for the first time that the woman he'd ignored all along was someone he should have been paying attention to. But Lee didn't stop there. She began to ask questions, pointed ones that cut through the hype and exposed gaps in their plan. The room grew colder, the confident facade cracking under the pressure. Claire leaned forward, nodding slightly. Others shifted uncomfortably. And just when it seemed the boardroom was about to explode in arguments, a message arrived on Leah's phone. It was from Daniel. 3 simple words, time to act. What would Leah do next? Would she finally reveal the secret everyone had missed all along? The tension was unbearable, and the answer could change everything. Leah glanced at her phone again, the message from Daniel lingering like a spark ready to ignite. She took a deep breath and looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every person who had doubted her. The air was thick with anticipation, but before she could say another word, the door swung open, and in walked Daniel himself. The billionaire backer, calm but commanding, his presence instantly silencing the room. Whispers spread like wildfire. Nobody had expected him to show up, especially not now. Daniel's gaze swept over the boardroom, lingering on Marcus with a quiet intensity that made even the most confident executive falter. "I think it's time we clear a few things up," Daniel said, his voice steady but filled with authority. The atmosphere shifted completely. Lee's simple image vanished in an instant. She wasn't just the quiet woman they had mocked. She was the key to everything. Daniel's unexpected arrival was more than a surprise. It was a power move that changed the game. But just as the tension hit its peak, a new twist caught everyone off guard. A soft chime from Daniel's phone interrupted the moment. He glanced down, his expression tightening. The message was from an unknown source, a leaked report revealing that Marcus's startup had been hiding serious financial problems, problems that could collapse the entire project. The boardroom erupted into shocked murmurs. The confident, slick pitch they'd admired was suddenly crumbling under the weight of hidden truths. Lee exchanged a quick glance with Daniel. The stakes had just skyrocketed. What started as a simple boardroom pitch had turned into a battle of trust, power, and secrets. And now the question wasn't just whether the project would get funded. It was whether the whole plan would survive the fallout. Everyone waited, breath held, for what would come next. Daniel's eyes locked onto Marcus as the room held its breath. "Care to explain this?" he asked, sliding the leaked financial report across the table. Marcus swallowed hard, the confident mask slipping for the first time. The report detailed debts, mismanaged funds, and even a few suspicious transactions that hadn't been disclosed during the pitch. Leah stood up, her voice calm but firm. "This project isn't just about numbers or flashy ideas. It's about integrity and trust. You can't build anything solid on lies." The room was silent, all eyes on her, the woman they had mocked, dismissed, and underestimated. Daniel nodded. "I backed this project because I believed in potential, but I won't support deception." Turning to the board, he said, "We're pulling our funding until these issues are resolved. This isn't just business. It's a matter of principle." Marcus's face fell, and murmurs of agreement spread among the board members. The power balance had shifted completely. Lee's quiet strength and Daniel's unexpected intervention had exposed the truth, saving everyone from a costly mistake. But just when it seemed the storm had passed, Lee looked at Daniel with a small, knowing smile. "There's one more thing," she said, reaching into her bag and pulling out a folder. Inside were documents showing that Marcus's own company had been involved in similar financial mishandling in the past, a secret Daniel had uncovered weeks ago but hadn't revealed until now. The room gasped. Marcus's empire wasn't as untouchable as he thought. Leah closed the folder. Sometimes the people who shout the loudest are the ones hiding the deepest secrets. As Daniel gave a subtle nod, Lee's simple appearance seemed to glow with newfound power. The boardroom would never see her, or the rules of the game, the same way again. The room was still buzzing with shock, but slowly the atmosphere began to shift. Marcus sat back, defeated, while the other executives exchanged glances, realizing the game had changed. Lee and Daniel shared a quiet moment. No words were needed. The trust between them was unshakable, built on more than money or power. It was built on honesty and respect. Lee's presence had done more than just expose a fraud. It reminded everyone that true strength doesn't come from flashy suits or loud voices, but from integrity and quiet confidence. The simple woman they had mocked had become the driving force behind a much-needed lesson. Respect is earned, not given. Daniel turned to the remaining board members. "We'll work with those who want to fix this honestly. But from now on, transparency isn't optional." His words set a new standard, one Leah fully supported. As the meeting wrapped up, Claire approached Leah, her tone sincere. "You surprised all of us today. Not just with what you knew, but how you handled it. I hope this is just the beginning." Lee smiled, feeling the weight of the moment, but also the promise of new beginnings. Walking out of the boardroom, Lee knew things would never be the same, for her or the company. But she also knew that being underestimated had given her the upper hand. It was a quiet victory, one that proved sometimes the simplest people hold the greatest power. The story wasn't just about a boardroom showdown or a billionaire's wife stepping up. It was about the strength in being true to yourself, no matter what others think. And sometimes the biggest surprises come from the most unexpected places.